You know, just trying to add more content to the wrestling um, portion of my repertoire. To be honest with you, the videos aren't exactly crushing it numbers wise. So I figured every Wednesday night I'll do an AEW Dynamite Recap, and it was pretty good. Show started off with a promo with Wardlow, and he comes out. This is how much I love you guys. He comes out, and then he challenges. Let's try it this way. This looks pretty good. Let's try this for a second. Let me see here. He challenges Christian Cage. I don't like that. We'll just stick with this one for now. To a match, and then Luchasaurus is with him, and they kind of brawl and whatnot. It sets up their match at the pay-per-view next Saturday. But, not the hottest opening segment, to be honest with you. But I will say Wardlow is getting better on the mic. I'm just fast forwarding through what I watched. A ladder match should be pretty good, and it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm assuming Christian Cage will put him over. Because they've kind of fumbled the ball with Wardlow, to be honest with you. They built him up to be, what up, William? My number one fan, William Zoom, in the house. So they got to kind of rehab him a little bit. And I don't really know how they do that. And the pay-per-view is, by the way, a Double or Nothing. And this was helping set the scene up for tonight's Dynamite kind of helped get the wheels in motion, the card. And so the second match was Lee Moriarty and Big Bill. It was Orange Cassidy and Darby Allin. Good match. I mean, I have, as you know, yes, before I go on, I'd like to give a special sad, I guess you'd say, R.I.P. to the superstar Billy Graham, who literally died, I think, during the match with Chris Jericho and Rick Strong. Like in the middle of the match, as Jericho's being put through a catering table, they did like the most. I mean, I guess there's nothing else you could do, but they gave hey, by the way, superstar Billy Graham just died. Hey, I think Roderick Strong just threw plastic forks at Jericho. I mean, superstar Billy, the first wrestler I was ever really a fan of was Kamala, the Ugandan giant. Like, he was the first one I really actually followed. But superstar Billy Graham was really the first wrestler I noticed. He was Hulk Hogan before Hulk Hogan. And he than everyone else, this gigantic blonde dude. He kind of had that Hulk Hogan, Jesse Ventura hairstyle of cool hair, but totally bald up here, but like long flowing hair down here. Almost like a kind of a George Washington situation, I guess you'd say. And it's sad that he died. You know, if you saw the recent online pictures of him, he was not looking good, to be frank. So um, it was it's sad. You know, always sad when the wrestlers die. And you know, I'm 54, so you know, any wrestler that was primarily in the 70s and 80s, those guys are probably 20 years older than me. I think Ric Flair's 74, so 20 years old. Yeah, I mean, basically 20 years older than me, and they're gonna start going. So, um, yeah, I mean, William, I don't know how old you are. But, he kind of looked, toward the end of his wrestling career like Ox Baker. Who most people know. Not really a wrestling fan, but you're a movie guy. You recognize Ox Baker from Escape from New York. So yeah, I mean, 79 years old is pretty okay. So I'm 54, so we're basically the same era. Um, those guys. I think Kamala was in his 70s. Ric Flair's 73, still wrestling. Sting is, I think, 64 now. It's crazy that he's literally 1 year away from Social Security, and although he's not wrestling quite as much, he's still, um, in there. And I think Jeff Jarrett's 55. He still works a good match. Jericho, I don't know how old Jericho is. He's probably around late 40s, maybe 50. Um, Mid 50s, maybe. Um, he still works a great match. So, um, it's just sad. It's not a lot you can do, to be honest. But, you know, by the way, I love Big Bill in the minute. 52 for Jericho. Thank you, Mark Twain. Jared, thank you for you. Uh, but, he worked a good match tonight. Um, with Roderick Strong. I mean, that was a pretty fun match to watch. Um, outside the arena, and Adam Cole, right? Nice swerve at the end to see him. I don't think I'd ever seen a match start in the ring and end literally outside in the lawn of the arena. So it was a fun match, but I like the tag match. I do wish they'd do more with Big Bill. I'm going back to Darby and Orange against Bill and Lee Moriarty. I just think he's so wasted. I've done a few stand-up shows with Big Bill, and he's pretty funny, to be honest with you. There's not many pro wrestlers I can say bought me an energy drink and a candy bar. He's one of them. I took him to this really bad open mic in a really bad part of Los Angeles because he had done the comedy, did very well both times, and before he left town, he's like, "Hey, can you get me another spot?" I'm like, "Listen, I'm gonna take you to this place that you're gonna really find out if you want to do stand up." And he killed, and no one knew who he was there. Comedy Store, he had a bit of a fan base there, just because he's a pretty distinct looking guy. So I'm not sure how much stand up he's done since that. That was when AEW was in LA. But he's pretty funny. So he's got a future if he doesn't want to wrestle anymore. I'm just fast forwarding to the next match. Some good spots in this match with this tag match. And then after that, we saw a segment with the Young Bucks and the Blackpool Combat Club. Kind of sets up the end of Dynamite. That setting up the pay-per-view. So far, good Dynamite. Nothing mind-blowing. Then there's a little segment with Lowe and Arn Anderson. Let's see here. We're just fast-forwarding this. And then we have Sammy Guevara. He's in a match with a jobber. This guy looks pretty skinny. But it sets Guevara up for being, you know, sets him up for the pay-per-view match of being it. You know, it's a four pillars match, double or nothing. MJF, Jack Perry. Some people call him Jake Perry, Darby Allin, and MJF. So I'll assume MJF wins, but you know, because you've got some interesting. It's a busy time for. Hey yo, bad times don't last, but bad guys do. Yes, Ross. It's from Scott Hall's induction into the WWE Hall of Fame. It's an interesting time for AEW right now because you've got All or Nothing, and then relatively soon you've got Forbidden Door 2. And they really haven't done a lot to set that up. I'm assuming All or Nothing will have, you know, maybe an Ospreay appearance, Okada. I mean, you know, I will say that there's a New Japan show Sunday in Long Beach that I'm going to. And Long Beach is pretty close to Vegas, so, you know, you'll have all the major players. On the West Coast, you know, I think Okada is wrestling. Excited to see that. Is going to be there. So, and then you've got, of course, the big London show. Yes, AEW is. That's another. Well, we'll get to that now since you brought it up, Ross. AEW is their Saturday, their long-awaited Saturday night show. Collision is starting mid-June, and you know, most people assume it's going to be a springboard for CM Punk's eventual return. You know, we all know the drama with CM Punk and the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega and the big backstage brawl. You know, so there's still some lingering issues there. So it'll be interesting to see. Assuming Punk might show up at All or Nothing, set up something for the London show. You know, the London card's, you know, 90,000 people, and although most of the you still have, you know, you got to put on a good card. This is their WrestleMania, baby. So, and like we've talked about on the Comedy Store Wrestling podcast, you know, it's an international card, so I think you have to have some international matches. Pump up the pay-per-view numbers. You know, I mean, think of the talent that's going to be in London. You've got so many guys from New Japan. You know, Omega, the Bucks, Hangman Page, Ospreay, Okada, Ishii, Juice Robinson. You know, and I'm not sure whose contracts are up, but you gotta figure there'll be a surprise or two, especially for London. You know, rumors of a Goldberg appearance. You know, I'm sure Sting will be on the card in some capacity. So it's gonna be very interesting to see how this all plays out. It's really a fascinating time in AEW. So getting back to tonight's card, we had also a segment with FTR and Jarrett, Satnam Singh, and Lethal. Sets up the match for All or Nothing between FTR, Jarrett, and Lethal. And the kind of a surprise return, or a surprise debut, I should say, is Karen Jarrett. You know, many of you know Kurt Angle's ex-wife, married to Jeff Jarrett now. She came in and gave some crotch blows to FTR, and then Satnam Singh came in and they did the old, they had a double guitar attack, which was kind of cool to see. And I thought it was very, most people probably didn't um, notice this, but it was the first time AEW shirt off, where he wasn't wearing like a Under Armour type outfit or a t-shirt. And he's not jacked, but he's in good shape. I mean, when you're, what is he, 7'2", 7'3", 400 pounds? Um, so that segment, I guess, uh, did well to set up the All or Nothing match. I think Briscoe is a special guest referee. He wasn't there tonight. So after that match, you had a segment with Sammy Guevara and Darby Allin. It was all right. Basically Guevara was saying, "I'm not going to lay down for MJF," and then that was a pretty quick segment in cast, which is comprised of Saraya, Toni Storm, and Ruby Soho versus AEW Women's World Champion Jamie Hayter, the Great Brick Baker, and Hikaru Shida, who made her return last week. Very popular. And very good female match. Um, they had good chemistry. And, each woman got to shine. So at the end, a little beatdown and some cheating. The green stuff was sprayed in Britt Baker's face, and they got the pin. Cheating. I don't know. This program's okay. It's I don't know. It's not doing it for me, but all the women involved. Um, and then Tony Khan comes on, and I love Tony Khan. He's basically a wrestling fan with money. But he came on. But some people are just like meant for behind the scenes and not on camera. And he announced that AEW Saturday Collision premieres Saturday, June 17th. Then the location to be announced next week. June 24th, Arena in Toronto. Thursday at the First Ontario Center. Thursday, June 29th, that is. Saturday, July 8th in Regina, Saskatchewan. Saturday, July 15th at the Saddle Dome where the Calgary Flames play. And Saturday, July 22nd, the Prudential Center. So I'll assume a lot of these setting up Forbidden Door, too. But, I got to give Tony Khan and AEW credit. Those Canadian shows are not cheap to run. I traveled to Calgary for comedy, and it's a hall. It's deep Canada. So, shout out to them for, traveling. So the next match was, like I said earlier, Jericho against Roderick Strong, and it was a really good match. Hard hitting, some funny stuff in the concourse with the condiments and stuff. And then we go right to Roderick and Jack or Jake Perry, whatever you want to say. And we go from that to Roosh and Jack Perry. And a very hard-hitting match. I like Roosh. I wish they'd use him more, but they seem to, I think, well, part of the, hopefully the benefit of Collision will be more stage time, more ring time, more TV time for guys like Roosh, who just, just isn't, they have a big roster, and with only 3 hours of television time, it's hard to give guys like him a shot, but he's good. He's a great bad guy. I really enjoy him as a heel. And, just trying to speed through this. And they had good chemistry. And they had like a run in here where Darby Allin had to come in to save Jack Perry, and Guevara comes in. And I do like that they're kind of making those guys, like Darby, when I say those guys, I mean Darby, Sammy, and Perry, almost friends leading up to the Four Corners match at All or Nothing. So, so they're kind of hiding. I'm assuming MJF's going to be the champ going into London, but they are kind of. It's almost like they're 3-on-1 match against MJF. So, um, I do like how they're doing that. It's kind of building up interest. And then we had the next match was Jay White versus Ricky Starks. Really hard hitting match. I love Jay White. And, Ricky Starks is, I like him. Sometimes well, I mean, I don't, I'm double or nothing. I think I said all or nothing. Sorry about that. You know, you got to really tiptoe around MJF because his contract's up in a year. So I don't think you want to have him lose. If he's not re-signing, you job him out. That's what they do typically to a guy who's leaving the company or a girl. But I don't think he's leaving AEW. I really think that, and I'm surprised at Bray Wyatt go to AEW because the schedule's just better. You're literally working one day a week. Because Dynamite and Rampage are filmed on the same night. Now it's 2 days a week if you're on Collision, but I don't think anyone on Dynamite's going to be on Collision. But I'm not sure. They kind of haven't said. The rumors are that they're creating that show more or less for CM Punk, so he doesn't have to be in the locker room at the time. Omega and the Bucks are, and whoever else he has a problem with. So, the Starks match ended in a DQ when Juice Robinson entered the ring and Starks hit him with the chair. Jay White. I don't know. They have good chemistry. I do. I think Starks is a kind of a curious choice for Jay White to be the guy he goes up against. I'm not saying they dropped the ball on Jay White, but I would have thought he would have gotten a more high-profile opponent. But I do like, him and Juice Robinson together. They kind of remind me of when Sean Spears was with MJF. Robinson plays that great kind of cowardly heel. And I'm assuming Jay White will be featured very prominently on Forbidden Door too, because really an unbelievable talent in New Japan. So he's got a lot of rivalries. I mean, if you think of some of the matches you could see with Jay White, you could see Jay White and Ospreay. But although they're very similar, off topic. Well, Ross, I'm a Steeler fan, but I'm a realistic Steeler fan. So, I mean, the Steelers it's very uncharacteristic for them, but they've been very active with the free agency and trades. I think they realize they have to do a better job at protecting Kenny Pickett. Sorry, I've got all these wrestlers' names in my head. It's a tough division. I mean, Jackson's back with Baltimore, so you can never count them out because he's so good. The Bengals are a great team and will be good for a very long time. I don't know. I'll say the Bengals. I think if things fall the right way, if the Steelers won the division, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, that's insane. No one saw that coming. But the Bengals are the younger team. Uh, I do like some of the additions the Steelers have made. Alvin Robinson, I think, is a good veteran receiver. Uh, you know, I love the Steelers receivers. Deontay Johnson, Pickens, Robinson, a couple other dudes in the mix. And anytime you have the defense. I mean, the Steelers' defense is their bread and butter. Kind of always has been. That's going to be their shining light. To be frank. And Highsmith really stepped it up this year, and he's a great compliment to Watt. And obviously Fitzpatrick, I think, was voted the best safety in the league. So, and Steelers, they didn't get blown out really in too many games. I think the one game against Buffalo, they got worked. I think it was the second game of the season. So, I don't know. I mean, it's. But the Bengals probably should be the favorite to win the division. And as a Steeler fan, that hurts. But, okay. And then we get to the last segment of Dynamite, which was Don Callis, who I've been critical of the last couple. To me, he just hasn't done much, on camera. You don't really hate him, you don't really like him, you don't really care. For the question. But tonight he was good. He delivered a very good heel promo, basically saying he made Kenny Omega. And he did it with a straight face, which I thought was funny because, Kenny Omega is amazing. The best wrestler on the planet right now. Or I should say the best bout machine. I don't see too many guys more technical than him, but I said this on an episode of Being the Elite. You could put Kenny Omega in the ring with Omos, and he'd carry him to a good match. So, and then Omega came out to challenge Don Callis, and then the Blackpool Combat Club started beating the shit out of him. And then the Young Bucks came out to save Omega. And then a really cool thing happened. Hangman Page came out and joined forces, kind of reuniting the Bullet Club to fight Blackpool Combat and set up their match, the pay-per-view. I think it's not a street fight, but it's not a traditional match. So, I think the build up to the pay per view is at Double or Nothing is it seems a little rushed. I'm sure all their minds are in on the London show, but I don't know. There's some good matches, and but it just and this is what yes, Anarchy in the Arena match. I knew it wasn't a street fight, but basically it's probably. I don't like those street fights or Anarchy in the arena matches. I just like the match, in the fucking ring. I want to see Kenny Omega and the Bucks and Hangman Page and really Danielson and Wheeler Yuta and Claudio and Moxley. I want to see them wrestling in a ring, man. I don't want to see them in the. I did like the match with Roderick Strong and Jericho tonight, but I just thought it was just kind of, it's a little too wacky for my taste. But our Ring of Honor does do shows out here, William. Not a ton, but they do them. Out here, a lot of the independent shows, like you have PWG, Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, you have XPW, of course, but that's deathmatch stuff primarily. You have a PC Ultra, and a few others I'm not remembering at the moment. So, it is Southern California is kind of a hotbed of independent pro wrestling. There's Championship Hollywood Comedy, which I think is done at the Irvine Improv. I think they're East Coast based. Because I think a lot of guys live in the South, and I'm sure a decent amount live out here in LA, but it's just more economical to have East Coast shows. Um, but and I don't. There's too many crossovers with Ring of Honor and AEW right now, so to me, it doesn't really feel truly like Ring of Honor. I wish it would be separate. I get why they do it, but like Claudio's in Ring of Honor. Do you really consider him Ring of Honor? He's AEW. Wheeler Yuta, same thing. Samoa Joe, I would much rather see him in AEW for like one last run. But it's easy for me to sit there and say do this, do that when I don't have to spend any money. So I'm just grateful that, in my opinion anyway, AEW is providing decent competition for WWE. I mean, I tried to watch NXT the other night. It was pretty rough. So it could be worse. So that was the show for tonight, AEW Dynamite. I'm going to do this. I'm going to try and do this every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Hey, what up? What up? Sorry, my vision's so bad I have to do this. Hey, Tang. We're just about to end, but if you have a question or anything, fire it off now. I'm itching close to monetizing my YouTube channel, but... Oh, hello, Trisha. Very nice to meet you. But I will answer all questions, even when I can do soup ads. Because the one thing I don't like about podcasting right now is... Oh, it's all good. I mean, I know it's a late time to do this, but, I get the East Coast AEW because I have DirecTV, but I didn't want to spoil anything for the West Coast fans who get it at 7 p.m. my time. So, oh, yes, Trisha, my good friend with a lovely son. Trisha comes to the Comedy Store periodically to see me. She also, I know, likes neon sign Earl done in the rat font. So it's a good time to be a wrestling fan in AEW. They got a lot of good stuff happening. And I'm not exactly sure, Collision will be good to, they'll finally be at 4 hours of television time, which hopefully, Collision will be able to let other people like Roosh and Miro and others sign on to get more TV time. And also, it was set up tonight, I forgot to say this, with Orange Cassidy and the Blackjack Battle Royale, because it's in Vegas. 20 competitors will be battling for the international title that hangs around Orange Cassidy's waist. And a funny story on Orange Cassidy, when we did the Hunkamania show, the second sold-out standing room only show at the Comedy Store, I had performed, and then I was in the parking lot just relaxing, catching my breath, and Orange Cassidy came in to the parking lot, and he's coming up to me, and so I was like, does he shake hands normally, or does he shake hands like that? So I just kind of like that, and he shook my hand like that. So he's a nice guy. And I just put up a picture on Instagram of myself, Eddie Torres, my co-host. He's not my co-host, but the co-host of the Comedy Store Wrestling podcast. Of me backstage with Eddie, Miro, and Orange Cassidy. So this is when I'll get to the plugs, I guess. You guys know what they are by now. At Earl Skakel. EARLSKAKEL everywhere. And big announcement coming soon. Gotta lock down the details, but as a comic of 23 years, I've been working on a secret project. Documentary / comedy special. If you're in LA, I hope you come support. Or San Diego, Trish. And then I am on Patreon as well. I I think I have 11 patron. I don't even know what you call them. Subscribers, patrons. Check it out. Oh, it's doing. I mean, I've shot about literally 20 hours of a documentary about why I don't have a stand-up special, and you know, and then we're gonna follow it up with an actual special. And I can't wait to tell you guys where it's going to be. It won't be too hard to guess, but we got to lock down the details. And yeah, I hope to come to the East Coast more often. You know, I don't. I think I explained. No, Black Ice is still on the brain, William. But for me to leave LA and get on a plane and you know, travel, the money's got to be pretty good for me to. And you know, I'm not like a superstar name, to be frank, so the money usually isn't good. And because I do make a nice living from voiceovers, uh, you know, I'm very lucky, because a lot of comics have to do these shitty one night gigs in Idaho, and they have to drive to the, you know, it's you know, Bert Kreischer, Rogue, all those guys, they do comedy. Uh, Traveling to do a one night gig for $100, that's doing the road. That ain't comedy. I want to do comedy. So hopefully the special, you know, in a couple months, and the documentary, they get some love, and you know, I'll do all the podcast circuit, and you know, build up some nice buzz about it, and you know, it's a jungle out there. Axel was right, but I'm still at it. So I appreciate you guys. Every little bit counts, you know, even watching this stream. I got 7 people. You know, that's, you know, I'll take it. Would I like to see 700 people? Absolutely. But, you know, I still do this because I have fun. Sure, I want to, you know, I wish my Patreon was at Kevin Brennan's level, I think 900, or I think Brian Johnson is like 7,000 Patreon subscribers. God knows what Tim Dillon has. I think he has double what Brian Johnson has, but I'm in it for the right reasons. You know, hopefully one day the money will follow. But I still want your eyes. Oh, well, I can't say that last word, but yeah, I'm not really, you know, like I like the podcast wars. I'm not gonna lie. I set my alarm every day for 12:55 so I can wake up and watch Chad, watch Kevin Brennan, and now it's like today I sent out a tweet. At one point I was watching Chad, watch Kevin, being watched by no, it was Patrick Melton watching Chad, watching Kevin, and I'm got 3 screens. I got my phone, my iPad, and my iMac up, watching all 3. And then I'm on the landline phone with my buddy Matty Goldberg, who wrote this amazing book called Brain Humor, because he had a brain tumor, and he is as obsessed as I am with it. But you know, I'm not real. I'm staying out of the fray for the most part. I know Kevin Brennan was kind of, I wouldn't really say attacking me, but you know, he was giving me a little shit last week, saying nobody knows who I am and I don't do the road and all that stuff. But you know, I turn down road gigs every month. You know, I think I told this story last week, but I'll repeat it for the 5 in chat who might not have heard it. But you know, I was offered recently. The landline is no, not a rotary. Tell Jeffrey I said hello. But this is why I don't do the road as much as some comics do, and this has to do with the voiceover work I get. I was recently offered $5,000 to play an East Coast club, 7 shows, all sold out. Not because of me, but because there's really nothing to do around where this club is at. So it's like a nightclub. and I've played it before. It's fun, but they drink, and it's like the Super Bowl to these people. So every show sells out. Um, William Zoom could sell out this club because it's just they don't care really who the comic is. They just want to go to this club and drink and laugh and heckle and um, so it's offered $5,000 for 7 shows. Now when I headline do about an hour. I bet you do, William. When I headline, I do about an hour and 15 minutes. So let's say you think 7 shows, that's 7 hours plus 10 extra of those 7 shows. I'm going to do close to, let's say 8 hours. I'll undercut what the actual time is, but 7 shows, probably about 8 hours of performance time. Now it's a 4.5 hour flight there, 5.5 hour flight back. So that's 10 hours in a plane, 8 hours of performing. That's 18 hours total. Now, to get to LAX from here, from where I live, it's about 45 minutes to an hour. You have to get to LAX 2 hours early. So that's 3 hours right there. That's 21 hours we're at. And by the way, the $5,000, $1,000 of that is for the airfare. Now, on the Rebel, you could beat the hell out of somebody with one of those phones. Try that with 100% Rebel. Now, coming back here, I'd probably only have to spend about an hour at the East Coast airport. So we're at about 22, 23 hours. You throw in morning radio, even though the shows are sold out, they still want you to do it. So we're at basically, for $5,000, 24 hours of work. And it's traveling, and it's weird hours. And 2 weeks ago, now I can't say the project or the streaming network, but I did a whole series of a cartoon, whole season of a cartoon. Because, Adult Swim, Netflix, Cartoon Network, Max cartoons, typically they're 11 to 15 minutes an episode. Some are half hour like South Park, but most cartoons are much shorter. Doesn't seem like that, but they are. I did the whole season in 2.5 hours and got paid $4,850. Now, usually they will do a pilot and see if any network is interested in the show. I mean, this series has some good buzz around it, so it's very rare that they did the whole season. So I literally made $4,850 in 2.5 hours of work, compared to $5,000, basically the same amount for 24 hours of traveling all over the country to hell and back. And, like I would say the last 6 to 7 years, I've gotten about $20,000 in residuals for the jellies. Now, let's say this cartoon isn't as big of a hit as the jellies, and the residuals, let's say I'm going to undercut. Let's say it's another $5,000. Now, of course, that's paid out over a couple of years, but for that initial 2.5 hours of work, I will have made $10,000. I literally did the recording in my home studio, right here. I literally did that project in my underwear. So that's why I don't do the road a lot. Now, of course, not every week I get a $4,850 gig. But recently, yes, that's the Neumann mic, the T103. I think I paid about $1,300 for it. I actually picked up, my vision's so bad I couldn't find the model number, so I just picked up $1 Neumann mic. I did not get that one. Daddy makes good money, but I ain't Russell Peters. So, but I just recently did a state lottery commercial. Can't say the state because it's not out yet. $1,500 for literally 15 minutes of work. Because it was just, the typical buy your state scratchers now at so-and-so lottery. So that's why I don't do the road that much, until I get like a fat cartoon or, my special in a few months. randomly gets picked up on Netflix or whatever, uh, I'm not really a name. So, I mean, commercials, they don't pay what they used to. Good day. Oh, shit. Ben Jones is a top 5 supporter of Earl Skakel. He's my friend from Australia. Got lovely kids. His daughter did a great impression of me going, mama, 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 mama. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's tough. I mean, not to bore you guys with the intricacies of voiceovers, but I'm in some ways in the best and worst category, booming, deep baritone. And there just aren't that many. You'd think a lot of people with deep voices, but like not of my level. I'm literally gone up against James Earl Jones in auditions. Not that James Earl Jones is auditioning for a lot, but he doesn't audition. He's offered the part, and if he passes, then I get to audition. I'm going up against Rob Riggle, Dylan McDermott, people of that nature. Yeah, I mean, I've been in the business a long time, so and I don't mention the actual money amounts to impress you guys. Believe me, there's many comics who make a lot more than I do in one night. But I do get asked why I don't do the road more often, and it's just not financially worth it to me. That's where I think a guy like Kevin Brennan has, to a lesser degree, but he's gaining. Chad. Zumach and some of the other Shuley, they don't do the road. They have to. They make money on Patreon and Super and stuff like that. So, if you now this is according to Patrick Melton, and I believe his figures, and he's another one. Patrick's basically quit comedy because he makes so much doing his podcast. So, well, probably William. I mean, I do love doing the road when I do it because you're in front of real people. Like I'm at the Comedy Store Friday night. If anyone's around, you're more come on me. Just DM me on Instagram. But I mean, I don't know what a guy like Jim is pulling in. I don't, he's a name. Crank Yankers and That Metal Show, and he's got a lot more TV credits than I do. So I would guess. Now I'm guessing. If I got offered $5,000 from that East Coast club, and the reason why I'm not saying the name or where it is, because I just know the podcast wars people will call the club and harass them. Not everyone, but some of the fans get a little too exuberant. I would say Jim would probably get offered 20 grand for those 7 shows. But I don't know. I don't pay attention to what other people make. I really don't. But here's a funny story. I don't know how well this is a keychain I bought. The Tubes, and at least 2 to 3 times a week, I see the singer from the Tubes at the dog park. By the way, if you've looked at my Instagram stories, you'll see within the last 24 hours, I'm thinking of adopting a dog named Jelly. With literally, they had to remove both her eyes. She's not blind. She doesn't have her eyes anymore. It's the great Fee Waybill. And Fee's awesome. So it's nice to just check in. Ben, R.I.P. To superstar Billy Graham. We went over that earlier. But Ian Hawk, a great fan of all the podcasts. Oh, thank you. I mean, I wouldn't say I know Fee Waybill, but like he's always very friendly with me. Always takes a picture. Ian Hawk is David Skywalker in the house. Well, you guys are coming in late, and I appreciate that. And for you guys asking me what shirt I have the Kenny Omega. I guess it's the Terminator shirt. Shout out to Pro Wrestling Tees. For my last 3 orders, I've gotten a hole in it, a Will Ospreay shirt with a hole in it, and a Will Ospreay shirt that was off center. So I don't know who the hell's making the shirts, but I think it's Edward Scissorhands. But yeah, it's a little weird at 54 to be ordering pro wrestling T-shirts, but I wear them to work out. When I take Lois for a long walk. I don't know what happened to Deitois, but she is a Patreon subscriber. And a shout out to Kid Mosca. I hope he's getting better. I know he had some health issues, and he is the OG $20 Daddy Man tier subscriber on Patreon. So, thank you guys for all the support. And if you ever have any questions about the industry, I'm an open book. You can always ask. And I will give you the honest answer, which sometimes does not work out in my favor. Well, I mean, Ben, that one hole in the Sting shirt was big enough for my head to fit through. And I nicely emailed them saying, hey guys, can I get a replacement shirt? I showed them the clip of the Comedy Store Wrestling podcast where, I show how big the hole is, and they didn't even get back to me. But, that's where AEW, I don't really watch WWE. I've tried, I just can't do it. That's where Skakel, I work alone, to be honest with you, Ian, because I don't know. I'm going to wait. I'm a professional setup where I have almost like a news desk setup. So you guys don't have to look up my nose. But, well, I mean, as long as AEW has their shirts there, I'll go there. I don't watch Impact. I think I did when Big Bill was in it. But I love Bully Ray. I'm a hockey man, as you know, Deitois. But I was thinking of doing a hockey podcast of some sort. I'm doing one right now at the end of each round, like recaps and predictions. So, and a shout out to the Seattle Kraken for a fantastic second season. I think it's going to be a great draft. A lot of good players in this draft. It's a very deep draft. I don't really follow legit wrestling. But, guys are amazing athletes. Yeah, I might do that. I'm trying to figure out some fun subjects, because I know, maybe a podcast on the industry would be good, or not a podcast, but a live stream. I'm best answering questions, to be honest. And I won't really do the podcast wars thing. I think people think because of my background in roast battle that I should get in there and start roasting everyone. It's just not my thing. I don't roast online. I roast to your face, which is, David Skywalker, we can talk about anything. This podcast tonight was, I guess, more or less about AEW. But, as you can see, if I get a question in chat about something else, I'll morph into it. I don't know. I'm not very. That's probably a question you could ask Patrick Melton. That nobody likes onions. I would think I know my friend Alvin Zeidenfeld is very proficient in the world of fantasy football. He's who I used to do fantasy football with. I won my league 3 years in a row. So, and I really enjoyed it because I love strategy. It's what I love about roast battle. I loved not calling someone fat or a whore or whatever, but it was a strategy of, okay, they're going to say this about me probably, so I'm going to say this before they say that. And so with like fantasy football, I concentrate, and fantasy hockey to a degree, although I was much more successful at fantasy football, I concentrated on the lesser positions. Like everyone's going to have a good quarterback, everyone's going to have a good running back or two, everyone's going to have a good receiver or two. I think in fantasy football, where you really make the most money and win your league is the tight end position and the kicker. Like I would typically draft the best kicker in the league first or second in my selections because you could pretty much. I am Ross. The Pittsburgh Steelers are playing not only in Vegas but in LA. I think they're playing the Rams, so I will be going to both games. Um, but typically in fantasy football, especially if it's a live draft, like we used to go to this guy's house and do it, and the adrenaline gets pumping, and everyone wants Tom Brady or Terrell Davis. I'm talking about when I was active, and they wanted. I'm trying to think. Curtis Martin was a huge fantasy running back then, and I would draft like Mike Vanderjack, and how my league did it. I think it was either 12 or 15 guys and one girl, and you pick 12 players, and we got $150 in fake money to draft your team. And so each player is going between $10 and $20, and then like if you really wanted, like say Terrell Davis in his absolute prime, I think one year I bid out of $150 fake money. I wanted Terrell Davis so bad, I literally bid $120 and I got him. And then I just drafted rookies, and I think I won the league that year because I ended up trading Terrell Davis and I got like a boatload back. But so I'm a big, like in hockey, you got to figure everyone's going to have a couple good forwards, a couple good defensemen, but the lesser known position I think is really goaltending. There's 32 teams in the league. There's probably, I would say, 6 to 8 all-star goalies. But most everyone, obviously you want McDavid and you want, Draisaitl, Fiala, Adrian Kempe, Austin Matthews, Panarin, Zibanejad, et cetera, Tavares. So I'd go after the goalie first and usually get who I wanted. But I stopped playing fantasy sports because, like in football, like if I had Tom Brady as my quarterback and they were playing the Pittsburgh Steelers that week, I would literally sit Tom Brady because I didn't want him to do well against the Steelers. And of course, he'd have like 3 or 4 touchdowns and then I'd lose the game. So I'm a big LA Kings fan, so I'm not going to draft, say, Trevor Zegras, and then, hopefully then I'll sit him when he plays the Kings and he'll have 2. So I don't play fantasy sports anymore. I do miss it because the live draft was awesome. I did the ESPN, that's where I did mostly the hockey stuff, but I don't think I'll ever play it again. And I think I can show you guys this, just so you guys line. We'll do a little, these are my 3 fantasy football trophies right there. So, turn the lights off, makes the rat sign look cooler. Sorry about the camera work, but I'm not Rogan. I don't have Jamie and Red Band helping me. This is a one-man operation, Holmes. So we're at the hour mark. So if you got any questions, let me know. But getting back to why I don't participate in the podcast wars, because of my roasting skills. I like roasting people to their face. Because that's one of the things that I always loved about Roast Battle was if you want to call someone fat, great. They're 6 feet to your left or right. But they were also going to get to call you something in front of a live audience. So it was much more skilled. Like anyone could sit there, like I'm sure people would love if me and Kevin Brennan went at it. He's in New York, I'm here. It's really not fun for me to look at him and type something and then wait 2, 3, 4 hours for him to say something about me. But there are people, like Chad is, Chad is a pro wrestling heel. Uh, but I think the problem with the podcast wars is that, I mean, even though there's hundreds of hours of content, it's really, I'll get to that question in a second, Ross. Um, Phil Lewis, brother. There's really only, I think there's like under 10 people in the podcast. Chad, MLC, the Shuley Network, Insufferable Bastards, uh, Steel Toe, obviously, Ray DeVito, and who are these podcasts, and so, that's under 10. And so in the last year, they've all attacked each other. So I think, the podcast wars is really fun right now to watch, but I think it's like the tech market that's going to burst. They've run out of enemies. They've run out of targets, which is why I think, when you're going after people like me and Ken Mosca, who are pretty much Switzerland, you've run out of targets. Um, so I don't know, because the stuff is old. It's the same stuff said every day about Chad. It's the same stuff said about Kevin. It's the same stuff said about Steel Toe. It's the same stuff said about Carl and those guys. And so, and Stuttering John. I mean, that's why I think Chad is. Everyone hates the guy, but he's awesome for the podcast wars because he keeps himself relevant. I see today he was going after Melton. So he switches it up. I predict Chad will be back on MLC in 3 to 4 months. Thank you, Day 12. You're the best. Uh, because I told Melton a couple weeks ago, it's funny, the week before Kevin was I didn't take it too seriously. I mean, I'm a fan of Kevin's, to be honest with you. I mean, funny's funny. And he's one of the few people that I hear him do a long cold winter, David. He's one of the few people that, like, damn, I wish I came up with that. Um, but I was talking with Melton, and I was like, I'm just waiting for Kevin to go after me, because Chad is so good at making everyone hate him that if you're friends with him, you become collateral damage. And I think some people go after me or whatever to make him mad, and so it's and Total BS. They're definitely in on the mix. I think they go after Steel Toe the most. But I'm like, Night Songs is a great album. It's funny. I live in West Hollywood, and there's a supermarket here called Pavilions. And one night I'm there super late. And this is when I had like not a mullet, but like a curly. I look like Kenny G and Vivian Campbell. And Fred Cray, the drummer from Cinderella, comes up to me and goes, "Hey, Vivian, how you doing?" I'm like, "Hey, man, I'm Earl, but can I ask you a question?" Because Fred had the greatest quote I think I've ever heard of any rock star, and they asked him what his career goal was, and this is when Cinderella was like at the top of the charts, and he's like, "I just want to be good enough to play on the albums." What the fuck? Hello. Um, I thought that was pretty funny. But thank you guys. Well, Chad is, he's a provocateur. And I think, um, you know, he goes into the mud. Yes, that was, I told Tony that story. I think about Tony a lot. I think Tony had a strange, it sounds like I'm lying when I say this, but Tony had an almost a strange crush on me because I was literally the only guy she's probably ever dealt with. I was nice to her because I just liked her. I wasn't trying to fuck her. I wasn't trying to, I didn't want anything from her. Hey, can you take me to White Snake or Rat next time they're in town? I just liked her. And mean, I've been performing at the Comedy Store as a paid regular. I think it's been 10 years now, and like by far and away, it was the best when she walked into, especially the main room. Like she had an energy and a presence. It was amazing. Like you just, I could be in that room with, I think it seats 300 or 400 people, and she could walk in and I'd instantly know it. And when you're up there, you're kind of like deer in a headlight. You're, at least I am, scared, and like you don't want to bomb in the main room. So you're not really paying attention. At least I'm not, of who's walking in the room. Uh, I think my buddy directed Witchboard, Bolton Sullivan. He had something to do with it. Uh, but like Tawny would walk in, and it was like that really obscure movie Up the Academy, when the evil principal of the school would walk into a room, and they would act. Everyone in the room would get cold because he brought in a chill. That's how it was like when Tawny walked into the room. Um, like just the hair, and she still looked amazing. Um, so I miss her a lot. Like she was trying to help me through a really bad breakup, and it's like I just I loved her. Like she was. We were working on her coming over. I think we were just supposed to do dinner, not even a podcast. Um, a couple weeks before she passed. So I mean, she was iconic, and gone way, way too soon. But I'm around so much death in comedy, I don't even get sad anymore. There's a comic recently died, I think 2 days ago, LA comic. And someone told me, and I was like sad for a minute. And then I was like, I'm going to order Postmates now. I don't even, like, I'm immune to death, which is probably the only bad thing about being a comedian. You lose probably at least 3 to 5 comics a year. So they are. And Tanya was strange bedfellows with me. Like, we probably could have hooked up, to be honest with you, but it would have. I don't think it would have ruined the friendship, but I don't know. I mean, obviously she was very, very pretty, but I don't know. She was more of a friend than anything else. So that's about it, guys. This has been So we started off talking about wrestling, and then we're ending with fantasy football and Tawny Katane talk. So the only thing I ask of you guys, you can retweet or share the link when you see it on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. And thank you, Ross. And so I'm going to plan on doing this now every Wednesday after Dynamite. Yes, thank you, Trisha. We'll start off with Dynamite wrestling talk, and then branch out into the chat and whatever questions you have. Great. And if you don't have any questions, just listen, and thank you for the support. This has been Inappropriate Earl. Yes, Dynamite's good, Mark. It's their Monday Night Raw, basically. So they're putting a good effort in, and it's AEW, a lot of good stuff happening. Got Double or Nothing next Saturday, I think. Then you've got Forbidden Door, which I'm assuming is in early July, maybe late June. I'm not sure, to be honest with you. And then the big London card at the end of August. You too, William. Everyone have a good night. I'll see you soon.